Steph Curry has finally addressed the rumors about joining Jayson Tatum in Boston. After the two were spotted together at a golf event, fans immediately started speculating about a blockbuster move. But his response wasn't what most fans were expecting. Let me break it down. It was supposed to be a birthday party. Barack Obama turned 65, and the guest list at the Vineyard Golf Club in Edgartown read like an all-star roster, mixed with a Hollywood premiere. Curry and Tatum hit the Vineyard Golf Club in Edgartown for former President Barack Obama's 65th birthday celebration, with Obama seen teeing up alongside Curry. While Tatum played a few groups ahead, actor Don Cheadle was also there. Nobody at that party was thinking about a trade grid, but the internet was. One report described Obama teeing up alongside the two-time MVP and 12-time All-Star Curry of the Golden State Warriors. Someone posted that Curry was in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts hanging out with Tatum, and the former president joking that it felt like a presidential swing was happening. Within an hour, that joke stopped being a joke to a lot of NBA fans. Two guys who just played against each other in the regular season were suddenly playing 18 holes together on the same weekend. Boston needed a second star, and Golden State needed an answer on its franchise player's future. Here's why the golf course mattered so much. The optics of the two NBA champions buddying up instantly intensified chatter of a potential Celtics trade for Curry, who has the option of becoming an unrestricted free agent next summer unless he signs an extension with the Warriors beforehand. That's the fuse. Curry's deal runs out. Tatum needs a co-star, and now there's a photo of them laughing together on a fairway in Martha's Vineyard. Tatum's situation is the other half of this story, and it's the half a lot of people skip past. Boston didn't just lose depth this offseason, they lost a foundational piece of their championship core. The Boston Celtics traded away Jaylen Brown this offseason for Paul George and draft capital, a move that left many questioning Boston's direction for the season ahead. That's Tatum's co-star since 2016, the other half of the Jayson and Jaylen partnership that won a title together, gone. In his place, Paul George, an aging star with his own injury history and picks that may or may not turn into anything. So when a report dropped saying Boston's front office had been dialing Golden State, it landed on a fan base already nervous about what the rebuild actually looks like. According to Sports Illustrated's John Corrales, Celtics president Brad Stevens may have already reached out about a potential trade for Curry, with Corrales writing that there's no doubt Stevens has already been on the phone with the Warriors brass to pitch a deal if they want one. That single line detonated within a day. 3 different corners of NBA media were reacting to it and not agreeing with each other. The first voice belongs to Corrales himself, and it's the one that started everything. He wasn't just spitballing in a vacuum. He had a read on the roster fit too. Corrales wrote, "There's no doubt Stevens has already been on the phone with the Warriors brass to pitch a deal for Curry, and that Boston has a path to making a decent deal for both sides." He even sketched out what that path looked like. Corrales suggested Boston's realistic trade package would center on Paul George, the picks acquired from Philadelphia, and Sam Hauser going out for Curry. The second voice came fast, and it came from the Warriors side of the country. NBA insider Brett Siegel wasn't buying any of it. Siegel wrote flatly that Stephen Curry won't be traded by the Warriors, and he isn't prepared to ask for a trade. He wasn't hedging either. He framed it as a running theme for the whole summer. He predicted it's something we'll be saying a lot this offseason. Stephen Curry won't be traded by the Warriors, and he isn't prepared to ask for a trade. The third voice showed up mid-celebration, which tells you how fast this thing moved. Warriors insider Dalton Johnson was reportedly in the middle of his own wedding anniversary when the rumor blew up enough that he felt he had to weigh in. "This has not happened, and Steph Curry will not be traded," Johnson tweeted, before adding a line that made the moment almost comedic. "Okay, back to enjoying my wedding anniversary," he wrote, with Curry only having 1 year left on his current contract worth over $62.5 million, and his extension eligibility opening in August. The fourth voice is the one that gets closest to Curry actually speaking for himself, even if it's secondhand. Danny Immerman of the San Francisco Standard went on 95.7 The Game and delivered what amounted to the closest thing to Curry's own position on record. He said the information available in terms of what Steph has said publicly and what people around him have said privately is that he wants to finish his career as a Warrior, and that he doesn't see that changing. 4 names, 4 different angles, 1 golf photo, that's the fire, and it hadn't even been 24 hours. So here's where this story actually sits at the start. A photo of 2 superstars laughing together at a former president's birthday party. A front office executive allegedly working the phones. At least 3 separate insiders trying to shut the idea down. within days of it catching fire, and Curry's own camp reportedly saying the opposite of what half the league wanted to believe. Something both true and complicated is happening here. Curry and Tatum really were seen together. The Celtics really do have a hole at the second star position, and Golden State really is staring at a contract that runs out in a single year. None of that is manufactured. What's still unresolved is what any of it means for whether Curry ends up in a Celtics jersey, and whether Curry himself has actually weighed in beyond what people close to him are telling reporters. To understand why this rumor found so much oxygen so fast, you have to go back further than the golf course. You have to go back to the summer Boston blew up its own core, and the summer Golden State's front office started quietly bracing for a future that might not include its franchise cornerstone at all. Every trade rumor needs a wound to attach itself to, and Boston handed the league a fresh one. The Celtics had won a championship with Tatum and Brown as their engine. That partnership ran for the better part of a decade, then in one offseason it ended, after sending Jaylen Brown to the Philadelphia 76ers in a blockbuster deal that unexpectedly helped Philadelphia pair LeBron James with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. Boston retooled with veteran Paul George and 2 future first-round picks. Think about what that actually means for a second. Boston didn't get a star back in return. They got an aging wing in George, whose own health has been a question mark for years, and draft capital that's only as valuable as what it eventually turns into. That's a massive departure from a title formula, and it left an entire fan base staring at a roster that suddenly looked thinner at the top than it had in years. That's the wound. Now here's where the Warriors side of the story comes in, because it didn't start with Boston reaching out. It started with Golden State's own summer falling apart. The rationale behind speculation about a Steph Curry trade to Boston makes plenty of sense on paper, largely because the Warriors completely struck out this offseason, leaving Steph with a roster that has no chance to compete, even though he's still playing at an NBA level. That's the part that turned a hypothetical into a real conversation. It's one thing to speculate about a 38-year-old superstar wanting out. It's another thing entirely when his own front office reportedly can't find the pieces to keep the timeline moving in his favor. At 38 years old and entering the final year of his contract, the argument goes, the time for Golden State to move on and start a true rebuild should be now. That's not Curry saying that. That's outside analysis reading the roster and the calendar and drawing its own conclusion. But it's the exact kind of conclusion that makes a golf photo look like smoke instead of just 2 friends enjoying a birthday party. Marcus Thompson of The Athletic added another layer that mattered. Not about a trade demand, but about standards. Thompson explained that the 4-time champion wants to see a roster that is truly capable of contending, and that he wants a real opportunity to make a deep playoff run. That's a very different statement than Curry wants out. It's a statement about patience running thin, not about a jersey change being plotted. Then there's the ownership angle, which is its own subplot entirely. Tim Kawakami added color that pushed the temperature up another notch. Kawakami said Warriors owner Joe Lacob has already begun thinking about the franchise's future beyond the Curry era. Read that twice. That's not a fan theory. That's a report about the man who owns the team, already looking past the greatest shooter in league history. Every era ends somewhere. Every front office, no matter how loyal, eventually has to think about the after. But when that thinking becomes public in the same week a photo shows the guy in question golfing with a rival team's franchise player, you get exactly the storm that hit the league in late July. It's worth pausing here on where all this actually started, because it wasn't a report at all. It was an opinion column. It all started with an editorial by John Corrales, a reporter who closely covers the Celtics, in which he simply imagined a hypothetical scenario. If Golden State ever decided to listen to offers for Curry, Boston should be among the first teams to make a call. That's the entire spark. A columnist floating a what if. It got read as a report of an actual call being made, and from there it snowballed into a story treated as breaking news across a dozen outlets within 48 hours. That distinction matters, because Corrales himself eventually had to step in and clarify what he'd actually written versus what the internet decided he'd written. He posted that he did not report the Celtics made an offer to the Warriors. He wrote a column that said if the Warriors were open to a Steph trade, Brad would call, and he thought it was pretty clear the whole piece was his opinion. But by the time he clarified it, the story had already taken on a life that opinion columns rarely get. It had insiders weighing in. It had fans building trade machines. It had a golf photo from Martha's Vineyard sitting right in the middle of it, refusing to let anyone fully dismiss it either. And that's really the tension driving this entire saga. On one hand, you've got a columnist's hypothetical, several insiders pushing back hard, and reports that Curry's camp wants him finishing his career in the Bay. On the other hand, you've got a real, unresolved contract situation, a real front office publicly discussed as thinking past its franchise star, and a photo that put Curry and Tatum in the same frame. At the exact moment the rumor was catching fire. None of that resolves anything on its own. It just tells you why the story had enough real material to survive its own origin as an opinion piece. A rumor built entirely on nothing burns out in a day. This one didn't, because underneath the speculation sat a genuine question about where Golden State's era with Curry is headed, and a genuine hole in Boston's roster that somebody somewhere is going to have to fill. That's the background. Now the story moves into its next phase. The moment the speculation stopped being background noise and turned into actual proposed trade packages with real names and real numbers attached to them. Once the golf photo and the Corrales column collided, the story stopped being abstract. Reporters started building actual trade packages with actual players' names attached. And that's when the conversation shifted from "could this happen" to "here's exactly how it would happen." Fadeaway World was among the first to sketch out a real framework. A trade package centered around Paul George, sharpshooter Sam Hauser, and 2 future first-round picks would at least give the Celtics a conversation starter if the Golden State Warriors want a fresh start. That's not a fantasy trade machine exercise anymore. That's a specific attempt to make the numbers work on paper. Boston Sports Journal's Jack Simone offered a version of that same idea, trimmed down. He detailed that the Celtics could send Paul George's contract, which would be an expiring deal by next summer, and some first-round picks to the Warriors in exchange for Curry. Different reporter, same core idea. George's expiring money as the base, sweetened with draft capital. Other outlets pushed the price up even further once you factor in actually balancing the money. Curry's contract carries an annual value north of $62 million, meaning any trade would likely require a third team to help balance salaries, and Boston would probably need to include a significant chunk of its remaining draft capital, up to 5 available first-round picks, along with players like Peyton Pritchard, George, and Sam Hauser just to make the financials work. 5 first-round picks. That's not a trade anymore. That's a mortgage on the next decade of a franchise's future. And that's exactly the kind of price tag that turns some analysts skeptical, even while they admit the fit on the floor would look incredible. Because the fit really would look incredible. And that's part of why nobody in the league could fully drop the story, even as the denials piled up. Curry would fit immensely well in the Celtics offense after the team lost an important offensive creator in Brown. He would give Tatum more space, make Boston's half-court offense less predictable, and force defenses to defend every inch of the floor. On pure basketball logic, pairing a 38-year-old who still bends defenses with a top 5 scorer in his prime is the kind of thing executives dream about. But the same analysis that praised the fit immediately flagged the depth problem that would come with actually pulling it off. You could end up with an incredible top 3 of Curry, Tatum, and White, but a much weaker bench. And that becomes a problem over an 82-game season, especially when Curry is approaching 40 and would need his minutes managed. Meaning Boston would basically be spending everything on the starting lineup and hoping nobody gets hurt. That's the tightrope. A superstar trio at the top and a threadbare roster everywhere else, betting an entire season on health. It's a tension that shows up again and again through every version of this story. Brilliant on paper, brutal in practice. One writer summed up the size of the gamble by pointing out what it would take just to convince Golden State's front office to say yes in the first place. The logistical issues cannot be ignored, along with the fact that no sane Warriors general manager would take this deal, unless Curry personally asked out. That line is the hinge the entire rumor swings on. Not whether Boston wants Curry, obviously they do. Not whether the fit works with Tatum, obviously it would. The hinge is whether Curry himself ever picks up a phone and says he wants out. And every single insider who's actually spoken on this, across every outlet, keeps landing in the same place. He hasn't. Despite all the media noise, Stephen Curry has not requested a trade, and likewise, the Celtics have not submitted any official offer to the Warriors. That's about as clean a summary as you'll find of where things actually stood. while the trade packages were being drawn up in headlines across the league. Another outlet that dug into the Warriors' side of it found the front office wasn't just staying quiet. They were actively planning around him staying. Curry is already under contract for the 2026-27 season, and Golden State has been discussing another maximum extension, having also been clear about wanting him to remain with the franchise. So you had two currents running directly against each other at the same time. One current, reporters building 5-pick trade packages and mapping out exactly how a Curry to Boston deal could get done financially. The other current, people inside both organizations saying repeatedly that nobody involved actually wants this to happen right now. Both currents were real. Neither one canceled the other out. That's what kept the story alive for as long as it did. There was just enough substance on both sides that nobody could kill it, and nobody could confirm it either. And in the middle of all that noise, one report actually put words in Curry's own camp's mouth that went beyond he hasn't asked for a trade. It went into what he'd actually be willing to accept if the Warriors changed course themselves. Every version of this rumor eventually runs into the same wall, the contract. Whatever anyone wants to believe about chemistry or Curry and Tatum's friendship, none of it moves an inch without the numbers lining up first. Start with the baseline. Stephen Curry's name has been floating around in trade rumors for a while, at least since it seems the point guard is in a strong position to dictate his future with the Golden State Warriors this offseason. That leverage exists because of timing. 1 year left extension eligibility opening, and a front office that's publicly been discussed as looking past him. The dollar figure kept showing up everywhere this story got covered. Curry's deal carries an annual value north of $62 million, a number that alone rules out any simple one-for-one framework. You can't match that with a single player without either violating salary rules or gutting a roster's depth entirely. That's exactly why every single trade proposal that's floated has needed multiple first-round picks and at least one significant expiring contract just to get in the same neighborhood. And there's a psychological piece to the money question too, one that rarely gets talked about with stars this level. Curry's side has reportedly floated something almost nobody expected, a willingness to leave money on the table if the situation called for it. The Warriors insider further noted that Curry, on an expiring $62.5 million contract, would be open to taking a pay cut for the right opportunity, meaning if the Warriors are able to acquire a difference-making player to pair with him and Draymond Green. He said he'd talked to people about this topic broadly and thinks Steph hypothetically would be open to taking a pay cut. Read that carefully, because it flips the entire premise of the rumor on its head. That's not a superstar looking for an exit ramp to Boston. That's a superstar reportedly willing to sacrifice salary to help Golden State build a better team around him. The opposite instinct of someone plotting his way out the door. That single detail is probably the most important piece of information in this entire saga. And it's easy to miss it buried under bigger, louder headlines about blockbuster trades. If Curry were truly done with the Warriors, taking a pay cut to stay makes no sense. You take the pay cut when you still believe in the mission. You ask for a trade when you don't. Still, the math around a hypothetical Boston package kept getting run by different outlets, because that's what happens once a name enters trade rumor territory. Everyone wants to build the deal, even if nobody involved wants to make it. One version had Boston's realistic trade package centering on Paul George, the picks acquired from Philadelphia, and Sam Hauser going out for Curry, with the suggestion that the Celtics might try to keep one of their two Sixers picks, though he'd be comfortable seeing Boston give up both in exchange for what would still be a strong long-term return for the final years of Curry's career. Notice the phrase final years of Curry's career. That's baked into every single proposal. Nobody's pitching this as a 10-year plan. It's a 2- or 3-year championship window built around an aging superstar, which is exactly the kind of deal that sounds thrilling in a headline and terrifying in a front office meeting. That's why, even as the packages got drawn up in more and more detail, the same skepticism kept resurfacing from people who actually cover the money side of the league closely. Despite the speculation, there are several issues with this trade. The number one being that the Warriors would not trade the face of their franchise, no matter how much older he is getting. And even the writers most excited about the fit couldn't help but acknowledge how absurd the actual price tag would look if it ever happened. If Brad Stevens somehow managed to pull off this trade, the city of Boston would probably have to dedicate a statue in his honor. That's the kind of line that only gets written about a deal everybody privately suspects isn't actually going to happen. The equivalent of describing a lottery win, not a business plan. So where does that leave the money question? a superstar on an expiring deal worth over $62 million. A front office reportedly discussing an extension to keep him, not a trade to move him. A star reportedly willing to take less money to stay, not more elsewhere. And a Boston package that would require sending out 5 first-round picks, a max-level contract in George, and role players just to get the conversation started. The numbers don't kill the story completely. Nothing about a $62 million expiring deal ever fully closes a door in this league. But they don't exactly make it easy either. Which brings the story to the one piece everyone had been waiting on the entire time this was unfolding. What Curry himself, not an insider, not a columnist, not somebody speaking for him, actually had to say about any of it. By the time the trade packages, the extension talk, and the pay cut reports had all made their rounds, the loudest thing missing from the entire story was Curry's own voice. Everyone else had spoken: insiders, columnists, front office sources, Warriors reporters at anniversary dinners. The one person the whole rumor centered on had stayed almost entirely out of the public conversation. And what did surface came filtered through the people closest to him rather than through his own press conference podium. That's not unusual for Curry. He's been here before, with a different team and a different friendship raising the exact same questions. When speculation connected him to a Lakers move built on his bond with a fellow superstar, he didn't let it linger. Curry quickly shot down the rumors during his media session, addressing the idea that he had reached out about potentially joining another team and firmly denying the claims. His answer that day leaned on a simple basketball truth rather than any drama. That any talented, high IQ player, whoever you put next to him on any roster, should be able to figure out how to make it work. That's Curry's pattern. He doesn't fuel this stuff. He tends to flatten it with logic and move on. This time, the closest thing to his actual position again came filtered through someone else's reporting rather than his own microphone. But it was about as direct as secondhand information gets. Emerman's account on the radio wasn't vague. It was specific about both what Curry has said out loud and what people close to him have said away from cameras. The information available in terms of what Steph has said publicly and what people around him have said privately is that he wants to finish his career as a Warrior, and there's no indication of that changing. Notice the phrasing there. What Steph has said publicly. That's not speculation about his mood. That's a reporter pointing directly at Curry's own comments as the source. He didn't leave it fully closed off either, which is part of why the story never fully died even with that statement on record. It's possible that things can change and things can go really sideways, and maybe he has a change of heart. But no, the Warriors want him to finish as a Warrior, and he wants to finish there, the insider added. That's about as complete a picture as exists right now of where Curry's own head is at. Grounded and staying, with a small door left open only because nothing in sports ever gets promised in ink until it's actually signed. The organizational side of that same conversation adds one more layer worth sitting with. Ownership isn't just quietly hoping Curry stays out of sentiment. There's an entire plan being built around proving something with him first. Lacob has a very keen interest in this organization showing what he can do with Steph Curry. And then after Steph Curry, the insider explained, a version of loyalty that's about building a legacy chapter together before any transition conversation even starts. That's the through line running under every version of this story, no matter which reporter, which outlet, or which insider you go to. Curry hasn't asked out. Golden State hasn't made him available. Boston hasn't submitted an offer. And Corrales himself, the man whose column lit this entire fuse, went out of his way to make sure everyone understood what he did and didn't actually report. He clarified he did not report that the Celtics made an offer to the Warriors, that he wrote a column saying if the Warriors were open to a Steph trade that Brad would call, and that he thought it was pretty clear. The whole piece was his opinion. So here's where the story actually lands, months after that golf photo first went viral out of Martha's Vineyard. The friendship between Curry and Tatum is real. They really did spend a day together, really did draw attention doing it, and really did give an entire fan base something to dream about. Boston's need for a second star next to Tatum is real too. That hole didn't close itself just because the rumor cooled off. And Curry's leverage, sitting on the final year of a $62 million deal with extension talks looming, is as real as leverage gets in this league. What's still sitting there, unresolved, is whether any of that turns into something more than a friendship and a photo. Curry's own reported position through the people who talk to him, through the outlets closest to his organization, points toward finishing things where he started them. But the door Immerman left cracked open never fully shut either. An extension hasn't been signed as of the most recent reporting. A season hasn't been played yet with this new-look Celtics roster, or this Warriors group still built entirely around its 38-year-old franchise face. Lacob's stated plan is to show what the organization can do with Curry first, before anyone even starts talking about after. Until that extension gets signed, or until a season plays out one way or another, every golf outing, every columnist's hypothetical, and every insider's flat denial is going to keep getting read the same way it was read the moment that photo from the vineyard hit social media, as a clue in a story that both sides insist isn't actually being written yet. Tatum's still in Boston, still missing his old running mate, still waiting to see who ends up next to him when the games start counting again. Curry's still in the Bay, still saying through everyone but himself, for now, that this is where he plans to stay.